This is part 2 of the weekly assignment instructions tutorials. Each week, each student is assigned to do all of the assigned problems. In order to check whether your solutions are correct, you participate with your study group mates in the building of a whiteboard. The whiteboard will have the complete solutions to all the week's problems. You will help create these complete correct solutions by doing some of them and putting them on the whiteboard yourself. Your study group mates will do the others. So the purpose of the whiteboards is that each student can check his complete set of solutions that he wrote down on scratch paper at the end of the week for correctness. Your job is to help in that by posting your solutions to some subset of the problems for the week on the whiteboard so that your study group mates can use it to check the correctness of their scratch paper answer. At the end of part 1, we took from the whiteboard that is as yet still empty the 10 problems that were assigned to you to contribute to the building of the whiteboard this week by putting in your solutions to these problems. At this point, WebTyco is not opened. We are working completely offline, and this will always be the case, that you do all of your solving work offline, not actually into the whiteboard itself, because if you do, you will tie it up too long from use by other students, and also, in case it fails to save, when you save it, you won't have a backup copy of your work. So we always work offline. When the work is finished, then we paste it into the whiteboard, which is done in a quick manner. So for now, we want to solve your 10 assigned problems. So let's go to the first one that we want to assign. And we work in Arial font, size 11. Turns out to be clearest. The first thing that we do is copy each problem from the text exactly as it is in the text, so that your classmates can see what problem you're solving, and so can the person that's grading it. So the first problem is a number 6, so we put in the number 6. Now the next thing is that you look in the textbook and see exactly what the instructions for this problem were, and then you type those instructions in as well. Let's suppose it was a simple word, solve. Next, you type the problem exactly as it is in the textbook before you start your solution. Now, I'm going to assume that this problem was to solve the equation x squared equals 3/5. It's not really, but I'm taking that as an example. Since that's a mathematical equation, in order to type it in, we have to use a feature of MS Word that's called the equation editor. There are various ways to invoke or turn on the equation editor, but the one that we're using here is the one that's guaranteed to be present on the final proctored exam. So it's the one that we will use for ourselves. To invoke it, you first click on Insert, then you find where it says to insert an object. That is the location that the mouse is on right now. So you click on the down list and it says Insert an object. Then you will get a list of objects that you can insert. The object that we want to insert is Microsoft Equation 3.0. Repeat, the object that we want to insert is Microsoft Equation 3.0. So we click on OK, and what comes up on your document is a workbox where you can type in the equation that you want to solve. Above is a list of symbols and features that you can click on to insert them into the line of type as you're typing it. Since I now want to type x squared equals 3/5, first I type x simply from the keyboard. Now I need a superscript 2. I can poke around and find where the superscripts are in the list of things that I can type, but the easiest way to type a superscript is a shortcut key. Simply type Control followed by H. This puts you into superscript mode. Apparently it didn't. So what I'm going to do is go back, and the X is there, and now I want to type Control H again. I'll try again. Apparently I'm out of my object. So I bounced out of the object. What I'm going to do is ignore that and create a second object. I'm going to insert an object right here, Microsoft Equation 3.0, and I type x. Now I want to insert a 2 as an exponent, so I do Control H, which puts me in exponent mode. I now type the 2. Now, to escape exponent mode, or to escape any of the other modes that we'll be using, it's all done the same way. It's done with the right arrow key. So I press the right arrow, and I'm telling then the equation editor that I'm finished with the exponent. I now type an equal sign, and now I want to type the fraction, 3/5. The shortcut to typing the fraction is Control F. So I type Control F, and it gives me the top and bottom of the fraction, and the focus is on the top. So I type the 3, I do a down arrow and put the 5 on the bottom, and now I do a right arrow to indicate that I am finished typing the fraction. To go to the next line, I press Enter. Now to solve this equation, I need to take the square root of both sides. So to type a square root sign, I can either click on it up here in the list of possible clicks, or I can simply use a Control R. Control R starts the square root sign. Now inside of here, I'm taking the square root of x, Control H for 2, and now I'm escaping the exponent, another right arrow, and I've escaped the square root, equals. Now on the right side, I also have to take the square root. So Control R for the square root again. Now inside the square root, Control F for a fraction, a 3 on the top, 5 on the bottom, and a right arrow to escape the fraction, another right arrow to escape the square root, and we come to the next line. Now I can type x equals. Now I want to have plus or minus, so I search for plus or minus in the possible signs. It will be under here. I found it, plus or minus, and I click on plus or minus, and it appears. Now I want to do the square root sign again. Now I'll do it from the upper choice. I have the square root, and I pick on the square root with something under it. I don't like that, so I'm just going to use Control R again. Oops. So I have to escape this. Now back here, Control R, and I get a square root. Control F is going to give me the fraction, a 3 on the top, a 5 on the bottom, a right arrow to escape the fraction, another right arrow to escape the square root sign, and we're now done. So I can click somewhere else in the document, and now this line of solution is finished. So I can click on it to give it the focus and drag it around, perhaps. Well, I don't really need to. It's an object someplace. There it is. Now, see if I can drag it around over to here. That doesn't drag, so let's leave it where it is. Now, I've solved this problem, and now I go on to the next problem, and I solve it. The next problem, I solve it. The third problem, I solve it. And the fourth problem, I solve it. Now that all of these problems are solved, I am ready to transfer the work onto the whiteboard. To do that, what we have to do is open the whiteboard. So we open UMUC Asia. I hope your computer's a little faster than mine. We open WebTyco. Alright, so we find the class that we're interested in, which is Math 009. And we open your study group, looking for your whiteboard. Let's assume you're in study group A. Now we're going to open the collaborative document, and we're going to open it for editing. Therefore, we have to warn our study group mates not to also open it for editing at the same time. So we have to get exclusive use of it, and we click on the whiteboard. On the chat room, we're going to open chat room for study group A, and indicate that we are about to edit our whiteboard. So the chat room should come up, and see who's already on. If anybody else is using it, then we can't do that. I've been asked to log in again. It's a little bit late, but I'll go along. If somebody else is already editing the whiteboard, we simply have to exit and come back later. Only one person can edit the whiteboard at a time, otherwise you get into overwrites and conflict. So let's see if anyone else is editing it. Nobody else is editing it. So what I'm going to do is type a message that I'm editing it. This will warn off any other study group mate that wants to come up. Oh, Jeremy is already on board. He is here, but he hasn't typed an editing message. So that's scary. I'm going to assume that he forgot to type his editing message. And what I'm going to do is get out now to avoid conflicting with Jeremy at the time. He certainly should have typed editing as we just did ourselves. So I'm just going to exit and not send that message. And we'll come back later and see if the whiteboard is available. When we come back later, then we will transfer our work. Only one person can be in the whiteboard at a time, and the chat room is the way that we control that. In the chat room, we saw that Jeremy was already there, so we just exit. So we'll come back in part 3 and try to post it again at that time. So let's log out. And our solutions, we certainly have to save them someplace because this is our record. So let's just save them as our week 1 worksheet. So when we come back in part 3, what we'll do is open the work 1 week sheet, and then we will go to the whiteboard again and see if Jeremy is finished, in which case we can take our turn and paste our own solutions up there. Closing for now.